Where do we find God? When the wise men from the east came to look for the king of the Jews, they came to the royal palace, but the one they're looking for was not there. There were some wise, learned men who knew how to interpret the scriptures in the palace, and they knew where the Messiah was to be born, in Bethlehem. They knew, but their knowledge did not help them find God. The wise men who did not know where Christ would be born, they who did not know, they found God in a stable full of animals. That's where they found God, in a dirty, stinky, filthy place. And they bowed down and worshipped him. Many years later, when Christ grew up, during one of his visits to Jerusalem, another wise, learned man was looking for him. But Christ did not pay a visit to the University of Jerusalem, so Nicodemus went out secretly looking for Jesus. He was hoping that Jesus would explain to him the miracles he was performing. Teacher, we know that you must be from God because you're doing these miracles. And Jesus immediately told him, you are looking for a wrong thing. You're looking only for knowledge. And look, I'm right here in front of you. So Nicodemus did not find God at the Jerusalem University, but he found him in a garden, under a tree, under the moonlight. We will not find God in palaces, in the Kremlin, or in the White House, or in the Buckingham Palace. If God goes there, he will probably get arrested by the security forces, just like Christ was arrested by the security forces of the rulers of this world. We will not find God in universities. We will find knowledge, but we may not find God there. Jesus said, thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the wise and the learned, but revealing them to the childlike. When God came to us, he first appeared in a filthy stable amidst the smell of the animals. At least these were the clean animals, according to God's own classification. But some people find God in the unclean places. And Jesus told us a parable about someone who found God in a pigsty. His name was the prodigal son. And when he hit the rock bottom, rubbing shoulders with pigs, desiring to eat the pig's food, in that very place, he found God. God revealed himself to this person in a pigsty. The Jews probably did not enjoy listening to this parable, especially the part that was taking place amidst and amongst the pigs. But Christ told them that God was found in this very place. To imagine God paying just a short visit to a pigsty, this is not something we would usually think about. But for God to actually pitch his tent in the midst of a pigsty and settle there for a long time, this is what God did when he descended from the heavenly realm into the mess of this world and made his dwelling amongst us in Jesus Christ. For him who came from the pure and the exalted and glorious dimension above, to live under these conditions, it was nothing else but living in the pigsty. And you would think that this heavenly visitor would be welcomed and admired by the inhabitants of the pigsty. But for some reason, after a while, the pigsty could not bear him any longer, so he was kicked out and torn to pieces. Jesus was like an invaluable necklace made of precious pearls that hung on the cross. The kind of pearls that Jesus described in one of his parables, a pearl of such a great value that the person who finds it sells everything in order to purchase that precious pearl. In another one of Christ's sayings, we were advised not to throw our pearls before pigs, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear us to pieces. That was Christ's advice to us. But he reserved the right to throw his pearls into the middle of the pigsty. And sure enough, the pearls were trampled and Christ was torn to pieces. This is what happened to him on the cross. The people did not appreciate the light reflecting from the surface of the invaluable pearl. So the darkness descended upon the cross and hid it from the sight of people. And no one knows exactly what was taking place between 12 and 3 p.m. while the supernatural darkness was covering the cross and the area around it. Our understanding of Christ crucified is shrouded in mysterious darkness. Why was this darkness there? A Christian writer, Ellen White, in her early career and in her early writings in the 1860s, she assumed that the supernatural darkness around the cross was a punishment inflicted by the Father upon his Son because of sin. Decades later, in the 1890s, at the time of her late mature writings, Ellen White's perception of Christ crucified changed. She did not perceive this darkness as punishment inflicted by the Father upon the Son anymore. Instead, in a number of manuscripts and in one of her major publications, The Desire of Ages, Ellen White explained the purpose of the supernatural darkness around the cross as an act of mercy. Not punishment, but mercy. It was an act of mercy through which the Father veiled and hid the agony of his suffering Son from the jeering, mocking multitude that kept shouting at Christ, laughing at him, and insulting him. In his mercy, God veiled his Son in darkness to bring an end to the abuse. At the very end of the earthly story of Christ, God was found in the midst of darkness. God was found in the midst of darkness. We may be tempted to call some places on this planet God-forsaken places because of the low standard of living or extremely poor living conditions. But the reality is quite the opposite. It is exactly in those places that we can find God, mysteriously moving through his Spirit, doing his work. Jesus, God in flesh, did not just come to visit the pigsty. He pitched his tent and lived in the midst of it, in constant danger of being trampled underfoot and ripped to pieces. And in the end, this is exactly what happened to him. As he was dying on the cross, the precious pearls spilled beneath the cross And while these were trampled underfoot by the unclean inhabitants of this world, the pearls kept rolling all over the place and are still, even today, rolling all over the world. Yet, even today, most people still trample underfoot the pearl of the great value. But for those who see its true value and sell everything they have so they can purchase it, wherever they are, even in a filthy or stinky or dark place, they will find God right there.